Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Show! Vivo de tres animales. That's a little switch up right there on the music. Because today we're talking about the Paisa 16, man. And before we get into it, let's hit that like and subscribe button. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content I'm kicking. And I highly appreciate all the support. We're going that way, not that way. You can go that way and hit the notification bell. That'll work, right? But in the meantime, in between time, here's some knowledge you can't get in college. When it comes to the Paisas, man, they have my utmost respect. We are derived as raza from the gente, right? From the people. People that look down upon, you know, Mexican nationals or do bad things to them, I feel a certain way about that. You know, I never forget where I come from, man. You got to go back to the old school with it. Got to go back to the classics. Got to always represent your culture and never forget. See, it seems like nowadays everyone forgets where they want to reminisce with the Pontius Pilate haircut, you know, the fucking Edgar, and think that they're going back to the Mayan days because they watched Apocalypto a couple times. But fuck no, that's some, I don't know, the chicks like it though, so you never know if they're gonna bust out with a fucking Fu Manchu, you know what I mean, for the cholos, and a fucking Pontius Pilate, you know, for the new generation. You know what I mean? What do we call that? We call that Mexicano, the one that's on TikTok going, hey, ¿qué? Anyways, the Paisa 16, man. The Paisas are probably the smallest, well, depending upon where they're at, group in state prison. Not very many of them, man. I remember we used to have an issue with the Paisas, and the issue wasn't that they were Paisas and that they were rocking under the South Side or, you know, a baño or none of that. The issue more so was that we used to hate when Vatos used to try to wiggle from the Norteno movement and go to the Paisas. You know, Vatos come in and claim Paisa, knowing damn well on the street they had a 14, you know what I mean, on them, and they were all gang banged out. And then all of a sudden, they fucking use it as like a crutch, kind of like Vatos that turn Christian in prison. There's always going to be that, you know, that stigma like, hey, Holmes, you're using Jesus as a crutch. You're doing it because you don't want no pleito. And them type of people get weeded out. If people feel that they're not really with the shit, they're not really carrying that Bible around and doing that shit, they're going to get thumped on. Facts. Same thing goes with Vatos trying to wiggle into the Paisa car. For 99% of the times, the Paisas will not accept them. If they don't speak Spanish right, Spanglish doesn't count. If they can't fucking trace their heritage back to being a Oaxaca or fucking some Mexicano somewhere, an indigenous person, they ain't got nothing coming, homes. The Paisas don't need that anguish and that trouble with some Vato that's scared to go be with his people. But we used to get upset with it because there were some cases where in some places, you know, the Paisas would allow it. They'd allow Vatos to come in as long as that Vato knew Spanish good and said he was from fucking Michoacan. There you go, right? Even though the Vato was from Modesto. You know what I mean? It just was like that. So that was our issue. Not necessarily with our peoples, but our issue with the get down. Now, I've seen several fucking content creators talk about the Paisas, and in some cases, a lot of people say that the Paisas are taken advantage of. They're ridiculed. They're victimized in prison. False narratives, man. That's fakery. The Paisas are their own thing, and best believe, man, in some places in the state, they'll fucking get off where they're mad at. You know, don't trip off the Mexican people. They all might be 5 foot tall, homes, but that's 5 foot of power, eh? And they're down to handle their business. I've always had a lot of respect and love for them. There's been plenty of situations that I found myself in where the Paisas were my only allies, my only go-to, and because they showed me that love, I have nothing but respect for them. But the Paisa 16 car is also in the feds. See, in the state, it's different. In the state, it's always going to be north or south. That's the dominant groups when it comes to the raza. You're either a Sureño or Southsider, homes, and they control many of the yards. And then, of course, you're a Norteño, homes, and they control a few of the yards as well. And then the brothers are doing their thing in the woods. They're drinking coffee, brother, and they're down to kill anybody, right? They're doing their thing. And then you have the others, which is probably the smallest group. And they pretty much get along with everyone unless it gets smoky, homes, and they got to air it out. You know, they put the detector on your ass and they fuck you off. Everyone's down. Let's just say that. Feds is different. It's a different monstruo, a different bestia, beast, right? Whereas in the feds, you're going to see a lot more Mexican nationals or paisanos in the feds. And the reason it is, most of their cases are federal cases. They get charged because they have no papers or because fucking it's drug related or whatever it may be. You see a great number, a massive number of Paisas in the feds. Well, the Paisas have all gotten together as a collective, stuck together and formed a group. It's been around for a while now called the Paisa 16. Just like the Norteños 14, the Southsider 13. Everyone always wants to put a number on it. I know for a long time, the Asians were claiming 15. It's just another number to identify your people. That's all it is, right? But the Paisa 16, they are very powerful group. There is a lot of Paisas in the federal prison system, and they're very well respected. You have a lot of vatos that are cartel related or have some type of association from the other side of the border, and they get that respect, man. Everybody knows better than to fuck with these cats because, man, you know what I mean. You can come up without no head. So I can't breathe. That's because you got no head, eh? You know what I mean? Guard, what happened to his head? I don't know. He fucked up, eh? That's just how it is. So. I've had homeboys that have done time in the feds. I myself never caught a federal case. I was able to wiggle to the state every time. But there's a vast difference from the culture of prison when it comes to the state and feds. Whereas state, it's pretty much the homegrown politics of what's going on in that particular state, depending on what state you're on. Where in the feds, it's all kinds of different politics. Now, you got vatos from everywhere. You got brothers from Washington. You got brothers from Pennsylvania. You got brothers from fucking Oakland. You got brothers from EPA. You got white boys from Northern California, Southern California, Massachusetts. You're going to fucking find guys from the Isles of Tonga. There's going to be people from everywhere in the feds. But what there's going to be is a lot of Latinos, a lot of raza. And most of them identify with this group Paisa 16 or the various other groups. Like, of course, out of Texas, the Tango Blast. And then, of course, Texas Syndicate. You're going to have the Aztecas. You're going to have the Border Brothers, which is a dominant group as well. Depending upon where you go in the feds and who's the deepest, they're going to be more controlling of the yards. It doesn't mean everyone else is bowing down like the West Side Connection. This ain't the 2000s. It doesn't mean that one group is just smothering everyone else and fucking them off. It just means that they have the numbers, and with numbers comes power and intrigue, right? So when you go to the feds, they try to keep you as local as possible, I've heard. But for the most part, you can go anywhere, depending on bed availability, case factors in your case, if they're trying to keep you away from a certain area or situation. But for the most part, they'll put you in places close, like Victorville, if you're from down south, which you don't want to go. Lompoc back in the days. Of course, there's Sheridan, I think it's in Oregon. Then you have places like Atwater. And if you're from the Central Valley, that's where you want to go. Every different group or gang or every different state has their people, right? And they all join something. It's just like the state prison where Wes Watson says, you got to be a gang member, right? You're going to have to join something. You're going to stick with your people. You don't have to necessarily become a gang member, but you're going to stick with your gente. I know a lot of raza from down south that are not from a barrio, right? They're not, they don't carry the trece like that, but they're residents, and they rock that way. Same thing with the Norteno movement's a little bit different. You either are or you ain't. And that's it, period. But there's a lot of factors that go into the bullshit, man. I've seen a lot of guys that come in as non-affiliates and get affiliated like a motherfucker. With the brothers, it's a little different. If you're not if you're not a blood or a crip or a kumi or jama or anything like that, Muslim, then you're considered a non-affiliated black. You still rock when the blacks rock, but you don't get involved in the internal beef between, say, Crips or Bloods or anyone else. It's not none of your business, man. And for the most part, them vatos stay out of it. And it's the same thing with the Paisas. They have their own group, their own collective. And they're pretty strong, eh? Now, one vato tried to say, I seen a narrative where he says, the Paisas, we run the feds. No, they run deeper in the feds. But there's always going to be other groups. The DC Blacks, the Aryan Brotherhood, man, the Emmett, the NF, these different groups, Texas Syndicate, Tango Blast, these Barrio Aztecas, these fucking different groups, and there's so many more, depending upon what yard you're on, that's where it's controlled. Whoever fucking has the numbers is pretty much going to control. It's like anything in any prison you go to where, say when I was in Susanville, the skins, the whites, we used to call it the White House because they had more control of that yard. They weren't necessarily putting it down on anyone. The Southsiders will handle their business. So were the Norteños and the blacks. But I'm just saying that they had the good jobs. They had their presence was felt. Definitely, man. And they weren't scared of no one. Never sleep on the white man because the white man marches on. They don't play, right? So, my homeboy gets at me and he's like, yeah, the Paisas, man, when I was in the feds, bro, I was on a yard, Paisa yard, they were fucking deep, eh? They were thick. I said, well, how was it? And he said, it was just like any other prison organization or gang, bro. They were applying pressure. They were putting muscle down. And so it's hard for me to believe. I believe it now, but at some points in my life, it was hard for me to believe that the Paisas were that dangerous or treacherous until I started seeing videos of cartel. And I said, oh, shit, right? Shit, we thought we were doing something with our little fucking 380. Maybe. But it wasn't that vicious, they fucking use chainsaws and swords and shit. And then of course you have like MS and all these other groups from the East Coast, the Trinitarios, and they're using machetes, and it's just crazy. gangs are always going to reign supreme within a system. And the Pisas are just another one. Okay, the Paisa 16. Now, there have been plenty of incidences where they find themselves involved in going against the grain on certain people. But one thing I heard about the feds I like, and this actual thing was implemented by the Paisa 16, which is a coming together of all the raza for a certain day of the month. They lay down arms, man, and they all eat together, and there's a lot of canalismo and a show of love for the raza. Man, I've always respected that. See, I've always respected the Paisas because they never... I mean, I'm going to tell you stories later on about incidences between Norteños and Paisas I have in the past. It just is what it is, but I've never felt good in my heart doing it. I've never felt good in my heart going against the razas, north, south, nobody, because I know at the end of the day, we all eat frijoles. It's the same thing. But as far as them controlling particular yards, perhaps there are prisons where they are the deepest. I know that, a lot of the Paisas that get caught up in drug cases or cases where they don't have their papers all filled out correctly, can find themselves in the Fed. So that means they have a vast majority of numbers. But it's not like they control the whole federal system. Like I said, man, you can go to the East Coast where the DC blacks are in control and they're the deepest, or the ABs, or the Texas ABs. I mean, there's so many different groups. It's hard to fucking wrap your mind around who's actually controlling that yard. The best thing to do when you're incarcerated, though, is to keep your mouth shut, your eyes and ears open, and just peep out the scene. One thing I know about the Paisas is they're very respectful. Now, I know there's been a lot of stories told that Mexicano nationals, man, Mexicans don't like what they consider pochos or plasticos, basically Chicanos or Mexicanos from California or any other states, man, north of the border. And in some cases, I felt that. I remember when I went down to Juarez, they were looking at me funny because my Spanglish was off point. I wasn't on key. You know what I mean? I wasn't carrying my soprano like that. And they were feeling some type of way. There was vatos that looked me up and down, but of course I would have shot them. So it was kind of like, we don't know. And that's how I was feeling. But I felt it. And it's the same thing that goes for, the Norteños get a bad rap when it comes to the Paisitas, saying that they were taking advantage of them back in the 80s and 90s and just doing them dirty, right? And I've told you guys, man, it happened. I can't lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat or add preservatives to nothing. It happened. But, as far as does it happen the other way around, it does, man. There are some Mexicanos that ain't feeling you in Mexico if you can't speak the word, you heard? And that's just it. So, I mean, the Paisas are a dangerous group just like anyone else, man. Very well-respected group. And I see this Paisa 16 movement as they came together for the self-preservation of one's safety and security, just like any other group or gang that comes together or organization in prison or even on the streets. It's all about taking care of you and yours. See, all barrios were started because people were proud of where they grew up and they wanted to control that area. We know nobody owns nothing. Okay, you might own a pad on that block, or your abuelita does, but nobody literally owns the barrio. But it becomes your neighborhood by fucking proxy, right? You grew up there. This is the soil, the same old corner store, the gas station, Circle K, Jack in the Box, same old torta, giving the same old mamon to the same old homies, right? So it becomes that's all you have. And when that's all you have as a people, man, you hold on like in vogue to that shit, right? Well, the Paisas are the exact same way. They hold on to their pockets. And in prison, they are victimized or have been victimized in the past by certain groups. So they came together and they're a very powerful and treacherous group. Just like anyone else, they gangbang, only it's a different type of gangbanging. They're gangbanging out of pride for their people. They're not doing it for necessarily a neighborhood or a barrio or nothing like that. Now, I got respect for the Paisas, but like I said, it always irked me. And I'm going to tell you guys a story of a Norteño that thought he could wiggle. He thought the wigglization was real. He thought he can go in and claim Paisa and that was going to work out for him. Well, it didn't. So, where I was out of state. I was in Washington doing time, man. There was a gang of Paisas there, right? Not a lot, but they had a nice little car, man. There's a lot of Mexicanos, in the Washington area, the Tri-Cities, man. Out there towards Yakima. Of course, you got them in Kennewick. It's Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco. And I remember we used to go out there, me and the homeboys, man. Straight up, we had some good-ass homeboys. It was good-ass Norteños, solid as fuck out there. We used to go wiggle with the homeboys. And there was this one in Pasco, I believe. It was like a dance hall, man. There was a gang of Paisas there. It was fucking popping. Them Paisa chicks hit differently. If you ever get you one, man, go for the gusto. For reals, right? They're just bomb. The taste it's delicate and succulent. It's like eating crab legs, but the good shit. Right? I don't know. Anyways, dip it in butter. So anyways, I could start reminiscing on that. But anyway, so fucking this Vato, he gets locked up. And one of the homeboys from Washington, a little northerner, man, he knew this Vato. It was his homeboy. Right? And I've been through the same situation, so I could identify. And he was like, hey, that's the homie. So when we see him in processing, he comes through, he comes into the building. The homie's like, hey, bro, we're over here. He's like, no sabe. Right? Like he can't speak English all of a sudden. Like the motherfucker forgot he has a fucking portrait of Dr. Dre on his arm, right? And so the little homie's like, what the fuck was that, bro? And I was like, I don't know. So he goes into his cell, whatever. When it's dayroom time, Vato doesn't come out. So we're already tripping because all the homeboys, there wasn't very many of us. We had to make our presence felt, right? So this Vato ends up coming out. And when he does, he goes to the Paisas. And he's kicking it with them. And the Paisas there, bro, there was one in particular, man. He was actually from Indio, California, but he was a Paisa. He was like their little shot caller. He was fucking with the shits, too. He was a beast, right? The homie goes out like, hey, bro, let me get at you. And that fool's like looking at the Paisa like help, right? And the Paisa's like, hey, no, he's our people. You know, you don't need to get at him. And so there was a little tension and friction there between us and the Paisas for a second, man. So we got at the dude, and the homeboy told him, hey, that Vato's a Norteno, bro. He has fucking 4 dots right here on his elbow and shit. Look at him. So, of course, the Paisas, just like any other group, they were like, hey, bro, take your shirt off. So Vato did, and of course, bro, he had put like fucking some tattoos covering him, but you could still see the 4 dots real dark. And so the Paisa said, no, get the fuck out of here. You are on your own, Peso Pluma, right? See you later. And the little homie took the initiative to get off on him, man. Him and a couple of Vatos from the Washington area. I didn't involve myself in that, even though it was a Norteno thing, man. It didn't take much, right? They smashed him bad, right? End up going to the hole, whatever. They get him off the yard. And that was a perfect example of him trying to lean on the Paisas like the Lean On Me movie, right? It's not cool. I hate when Vatos do that. I mean, I've had the situation happen with myself, man, where a homeboy that I knew, bro, did that. He got out, and I ran up in his pad and drug him out, right? Because I felt some way. Because it feels like you're turning your back on your people, and that ain't cool. Now, I can understand the dropping out situation and all that. That is the ultimate turn the back thing. But I'm talking about as far as when you're active, homes, you feel some type of way. When you know a Vato is utilizing the Paisas, man, trying to play them for fools, man, that ain't cool. So anyways, the gist of this is, do the Paisa 16 control the feds? Maybe in some fucking yards and some prisons they do. Maybe they are deeper and they have that respect, homes. But as far as the whole federal system, nah, man. The DNA and the makeup of the federal system is there's Vatos from everywhere, white, black, brown, and depending upon where you go is how it's gonna roll. That's it. You know, like I said, I'm not coming from a point of view of having been there because I never did Fed time, and I'm glad I haven't. Crip Mac could tell you all about it when he gets out on 55th, cuz, right? But I can't. But what I can tell you is secondhand information from real ones that have told me that the Paisas are definitely a very vicious group. They handle their business just like anyone else. And when people try to minimize their contribution to the culture or to anything, man, you can't. See, we all come from that. We all come, if you're Chicano, homes, you know, just like brothers, right? You know, blacks, there's a lot of blacks that don't like to be considered called Africanos or African because they're like, we're Americans, homie, we're born here. You know, but that blood still comes from Africa. You still got that in you, man. So you should respect it, and a lot do. You know, that's their motherland. Whereas Mexico is our motherland. Even Spain is the motherland. I know there's a lot of indigenous Mexicanos that say Spain is all bad, but we got Spaniard blood in us. You know, you're not just gonna see fucking Canelo. That Vato got more Spaniard blood than a little bit, right? It's just what it is. So I show respects to, of course, the indigenous Mexicanos because that's where I'm derived from, as well as the Spaniards because there's that blood, homie. Regardless if they were bad people, everybody's been bad. You know, you can't be a gang member out there trying to shoot someone that looks just like you and say, but I don't fuck them Spaniards. They did bad shit. That's game, bro. You just tried to shoot at a Vato that ate frijoles this morning like you did. See? It ain't cool. Anyways, with that being said, shout out to the Paisa 16 car. The history, the makeup, you know, of when they started. Paisas have always been around. They've always been incarcerated. They've always been with the wig one involved, homes. Are they a respected group? More so in the feds than the state. You know, I've seen people take advantage of them in the state, but I've also seen them rise up and fucking whack people. So they're nothing to sleep on. I'll tell you that much, man. Shout out and respects to my Mexicano people. I'm always going to show love to the raza. When I say raza, I mean everybody of Latin descent, man. I don't just mean some Chicanos from LA or Fresno or Merced, homes, or Modesto. I mean fucking Latinos from all over the world, man. And that's just what it is with me. I'm always going to be about my culture. My culture is always going to hopefully be about me. And we're going to continue that struggle. With that being said, I hope that you move smooth with a purpose, get everything that you want coming. And remember, at the end of the day, it's all about the strive to struggle, the struggle to strive. And we're going to continue to get on with the get on and do what we do right here on Gunners Collective TV. I appreciate all the support. thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for what I believe in, and that's what's beneficial for the people, and that's realness. Bang, bang.